Imagine, just for a moment, this magnificent glowing mansion. It just appears like out of thin air, hanging there in the sky, shimmering. It sounds like a dream, right? But it's described as a celestial reality in some really ancient texts. Today, we're diving deep into these accounts, these heavenly homes. They're called vimānas, celestial mansions. And the stories behind them about the beings living there are just incredible. We're looking at parts of the Sunikkhittavagga that translates roughly to the chapter of the well-placed. It's this collection of tales, and they really unpack the connection, this profound link between what we do as humans and the kind of rewards, sometimes spectacular rewards, found in these celestial realms. Our mission really is to uncover the surprising simplicity and also the immense power behind these meritorious deeds. We want to understand what these stories are telling us about cause and effect, maybe even across lifetimes.
hmm And what's really illuminating about these stories is how consistent they are in their structure. They're often set up as dialogues, usually between the venerable Moggallāna, he was one of the Buddha's chief disciples, and these different divine beings. And they always seem to circle back to one core question. What good deeds did you do back when you were human to get all this glory?
Yeah.
So they give us these direct insights into karma. Not fate, mind you, but intentional action. And how that action leads to specific results, the vipaka. It's a very clear, almost detailed picture of ethical cause and effect.
Yeah, we often think it has to be these grand heroic gestures to make a real difference, big donations, huge sacrifices. But these stories, they kind of turn that idea on its head. They show the huge impact of just everyday kindness and simple, sincere care. What's the core message you see coming through in these first few examples, beyond just the amazing rewards?
Well, I think the core message is that it's genuine intention and just basic human decency, really.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what your status was in the world. That's the real currency for spiritual reward. These stories consistently emphasize the purity of mind, that sincere wish to do good. That's central. It's not about how big or costly the act was itself.
That's a really powerful point. Let's look at a specific example. There's one story, sometimes called the Mansion of the Joyful Garden. Venerable Moggallāna sees this dazzling vimāna, right? Described as beautiful as the God's own forest garden, just lighting up the sky. And the divine being inside tells his story. In his past life, he was poor, helpless, just an ordinary laborer. But despite being poor, he looked after his elderly parents. And this phrase comes up with a pleased mind he gave generously. Abundant food and drink to virtuous people. And his reward for these seemingly humble acts, this amazing radiance, all his wishes fulfilled, and this incredible celestial mansion. It really makes you rethink what we value, doesn't it?
Precisely. It's a crystal clear illustration of karma, his intentional, wholesome actions supporting parents, giving with that pleased mind, leading directly to this glorious vipaka. The Mansion of the Jewel Pillar gives us another angle. Here, it's this magnificent vimāna, 700 peak houses, lapis lazuli pillars, divine music, all the sense pleasures, dancing maidens, the works. And what did the inhabitant do as a human? He built a path or causeway in a wilderness and planted trees in a park. Plus, again, giving food and drink to the virtuous. These acts of public good, generosity, done with that pleased mind, clearly seen as hugely meritorious.
And building on that idea of simple kindness, there's an even more spontaneous act in the story of the mango waterer, another splendid vimāna. The inhabitant in his past life was just a laborer watering someone else's mango grove. It was scorching hot. He runs into Venerable Sariputta, another major disciple who is physically tired, but the text notes he had an untiring mind. And just out of this spontaneous compassion, the laborer washes Sariputta's feet with clear water. And the immediate effect on him was this immense joy filling his whole body. Just from that simple act, the reward, rebirth in the beautiful Nandana garden, enjoying divine music and dance, that feeling of immediate internal joy, well, it's quite something, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And that internal experience, that joy, it's not just a side effect. It seems integral to the meritorious action itself. Like a direct feedback loop. It reinforces the purity of the act, And for something that seems almost tiny in scale, think about the Mansion of the Well-Placed. Here, the divine being tells of a deed that sounds incredibly simple. He just placed a garland well on a stupa, a relic mound of the Buddha, the Sukkata. Yet his reward was great power, great might, endowed with divine pleasures in a magnificent vimāna. What's compelling there is how even the smallest gesture of respect, if it's done with genuine faith and care, can yield such immense spiritual benefit.
Yeah, so we've seen everyday kindness, even these tiny acts of devotion, having a huge impact. But what about more explicit faith? Veneration directed specifically towards enlightened beings. Does the merit change somehow? Does it intensify with that focused intention?
It certainly seems to. When that intention, that pure heart, is directed towards a really worthy object like the Buddha himself, well, we often see an intensification of the vipaka, the result.
Yeah.
The acts themselves might sometimes be grander, yes, but that underlying principle, intentional action, it remains absolutely central.
Let's explore that. There's the story of the monastery builder, the golden mansion. It describes this golden mansion on a golden mountain, just dripping with jewels, lapis lazuli, crystal, silver, coral, pearls, rubies, unbelievable. The divine being living there shines like the rising sun. And his deed, he built a monastery for the Buddha in Andhakavinda, and he also offered things like scents, garlands, requisites, again with a pure heart. The reward, he controls the beautiful Nandana forest, enjoys all this celestial entertainment. It's a real testament to dedication to generosity.
Indeed. That intention, offering, and building with a pure heart is absolutely key. Then you have the mansion of diverse uses. The person living there is in this multicolored, sorrow-destroying mansion, and even other deities honor him. As a human, he'd been a disciple of an earlier Buddha, Sumedha. Now, he apparently had no gulfs to give himself, but what he did was encourage others. He exhorted them to worship the relic of the worshipful one, telling them it would lead to heaven, and he himself venerated the stupa with a mind fixed in faith. His reward was described as inexhaustible merit, enjoying divine happiness among the Tidasa gods, a high class of celestial beings. It shows that even, encouraging others towards good deeds generates merit for yourself.
And then there's that really dramatic story, Matakutali and his father. Venerable Moggallāna finds this man just weeping, inconsolable because his son died. And Moggallāna uses this brilliant analogy. He tells the father his grief is like wanting the sun and moon for chariot wheels. It shows the folly of grieving for the unseen, for what you just can't have.
Right, it's that classic aha moment. Moggallāna's words just cut through the father's delusion. They extinguish his sorrow. But the story's real kicker comes next.
Absolutely. The son, Makutali, suddenly appears as a divine being, and he explains that when he was human, sick, suffering, and dying, he simply saw the Buddha. And with a joyful and clear mind, he just made an act of veneration. And Anjali, putting his palms together, that's it. But the ripple effect of that simple, faith-filled act is astonishing. The father is amazed. He takes refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. He vows to keep the 5 precepts: no killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, or intoxicants. And his divine son actually instructs him on these precepts from his celestial home.
It's such a profound illustration. A single moment of sincere faith, just a pure mental act, can have these transformative consequences, not just for the person, but for others connected to them too. But maybe one of the most surprising examples, for me anyway, comes from the mansion of Kantaka.
Ah, yes, that's the story that always gives me pause. Venerable Moggallāna finds himself in this breathtaking celestial palace, like the full moon, made of gleaming jewels, beautiful ponds, gardens, apsaras entertaining, and the divine being living there, it was Kantaka, Prince Siddhartha's horse, his noble steed. Kantaka was the horse who carried Siddhartha that midnight when he left the palace, renounced everything for supreme enlightenment left. And the text says Kantaka felt great joy. He was delighted when he heard Siddhartha's intention. After Siddhartha left, Kantaka licked his feet, watched him go with tears, and eventually died of grief in separation.
The depth of devotion there in an animal is just remarkable. And that deep devotion, that joy he felt in his master's quest, led to his rebirth in this magnificent Vimāna. And incredibly, it mentions even the aspiration for asavakaya, the destruction of defilements, hinting towards ultimate liberation. It really pushes our understanding of who or what can generate merit. Kantaka even asked Moggallāna to pass on greetings to the Buddha. And Moggallāna's subsequent talk with the Buddha deepens Moggallāna's own understanding too. This story powerfully shows that spiritual merit isn't just for humans or only for grand acts. Sincere veneration, even a moment of faith, can have huge consequences, even for an animal.
So these stories aren't just about individual rewards, are they? They also show how actions can ripple outwards, affect lots of people. And some of them even subtly challenge our ideas about, well, lasting happiness. Let's maybe dig into that a bit.
Yes, that interdependence of actions, the far-reaching effects, that's definitely a major theme. And woven into that is the subtle but persistent truth of impermanence, even in these heavenly realms.
Right, like the mansion of the cowherd. We see another high, long-lasting mansion shining like the moon, music, dancing maidens. This deity was once a cowherd, guarding someone else's cows. A monk comes by. But at the same time, the cows wander off into a field. So the cowherd has this dilemma. 2 duties today, he thinks. He chooses to attend to the monk first, with this unstated intention to give something later. Then he quickly runs off to protect the field, gets bitten by a poisonous snake, and dies. What's really interesting is how the story highlights the monk's compassion for the cowherd. The monk later gave him food, after the bite happened, and the Divaputo, the divine being, explicitly says, "I was greatly helped by your compassion, venerable." So he gets reborn as a deity, acknowledging this huge benefit he received just by being the object of a monk's compassion, combined with his own pure intention. It really speaks to how interconnected these wholesome acts are.
It's a beautiful example, isn't it? How even a pure, unstated intention to give, plus being the recipient of someone else's compassion, leads to this powerful vipaka. And this interdependence, but also the impermanence of even that celestial joy, is captured brilliantly in the mansion of Serissaka. Here, Moggallāna tells of an encounter between a yaka, a powerful nature spirit, sometimes seen as a deity, and a group of merchants. They're lost in this awful desert. Dangerous, waterless, filled with dust and hot sand, just dire straits. And the yaka's Vimāna appears, this magnificent contrast. Aerial ponds, beautiful trees, jeweled pillars, food, drink, apsardas.
And the Yaka's backstory is just wow. He used to be King Payasi, described as an atheist, miserly, evil, and an annihilationist, basically holding the view that there's nothing after death. But he was transformed by the teachings of the monk Kumar Kassapa. He became a lay follower, started observing the 5 precepts. But here's the really profound twist. This former king, now this powerful Serissaka Yaka, he expresses sorrow. Why would a being in such a magnificent celestial mansion be sorrowful?
This is such a crucial point. It pushes way beyond just simple rewards. He's sorrowful because he knows his celestial lifespan, even though it's immense, 500 celestial years it will eventually end. He sees his impending fall due to exhaustion of merit. It's this stark reminder that even these grand celestial rewards, wonderful as they are still temporary, still within the cycle of birth and death, samsara. But the story's depth doesn't even stop there, does it?
No, it gets even deeper. The Yaka reveals that the merchants weren't saved from the desert by chance. They were saved because of the merit of a humble barber who was traveling with them, named Sambhava. He was just a virtuous lay follower who took good care of his parents. The Yaka says he only appeared because of Sambhava's merit. And inspired by Sambhava and by the Yaka story, all the merchants, young and old, they clung to the Vimāna, it says, like they wanted to share in the merit. They all took refuge, started observing the 5 precepts, they got home safely, became successful, and even built a memorial for Serissaka. And the text concludes with this amazing insight. Such association with good people is greatly beneficial. For the sake of one lay follower, all beings became happy.
That really raises an important question for all of us, doesn't it? Serissaka's story is just. It's profound. It shows ethical transformation, the incredible ripple effect of just one virtuous person, and that poignant truth that even celestial pleasures don't last forever. His sorrow is this powerful nudge reminding us that even the grandest rewards in higher realms are still part of the cycle. It pushes us to think about what truly lasting liberation might actually mean, something beyond these temporary heavenly homes.
Wow. What an incredible deep dive into these ancient stories, really. From just, watering a tree or a horse's unwavering loyalty, or a king's complete turnaround from being this total skeptic to a sorrowful celestial being. The thread running through all of them is undeniable. It's the power of intentional, wholesome action and sincere faith. It truly makes you think about those small acts of compassion you see or do every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've seen pretty clearly that merit isn't really about your status or how much money you have. It's about the purity of your heart. It's about the consistency of your ethical choices. And, knowledge is great, but it's most valuable when it's understood and applied. These narratives aren't just dusty old tales. They offer a really practical framework, actually, for cultivating kindness, generosity, moral conduct in our own lives, shaping not just our present, but potentially our future in ways we probably can't even begin to imagine. So when you consider all these powerful accounts, what simple, heartfelt action could you take today? Something that might just sow the seeds for an unforeseen, maybe even magnificent future.